My favorite burglar is back. Dane Brugler of The Athletic. He came out with his first top 100 big board of the draft cycle here. And it's time to do some overreacting today. Come on, let's get into this thing. I'm really curious to see who he's got. I'm sure he's going to have some interesting takes out here. So without further ado, let's get right into this. This is before the combine coming up here just in a few weeks. We're getting close. It's draft season. And now we go on, though, to it. And Travis Hunter's at number 1 overall for him on his big board. I agree with this. Hunter's still my best player in the class. I know we see Abdul Carter go number 1 overall, and it's just mainly because the Tennessee Titans are picking at the number 1 spot. If it were the Cleveland Browns, I would have Travis Hunter go number 1 overall. Abdul Carter, obviously Myles Garrett now wanting to be traded, that's true. So maybe Abdul Carter would go there anyway. Overall, though, Hunter, I think, is dropping down a little bit. Just the people are maybe overlooking some things or moving up Abdul Carter. And you also have to look at the positional value, I guess. If you want an edge rusher, if you want defensive lineman, you just watch the Philadelphia Eagles dismantle the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. So it makes a lot of sense. But in terms of what Hunter brings to the table, is completely unique. You're not going to find these type of players very often. So I think he is a truly unique player that you only find every so often, 10 to 20 years type of cat. And that's why I think he is a true generational level talent. That's the only time I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say right now. It's the only time, I think. Here's another generational player. No, Abdul Carter, number 2 overall. Good player. And somebody that, if you're picking number 1 overall and you need an edge rusher, if you're the Cleveland Browns at the number 2 overall pick, you need an edge rusher moving on from Myles Garrett, you're taking Abdul Carter. You're running to the table. Tennessee Titans clearly need an edge rusher. If they don't go quarterback, I take Abdul Carter. It makes so much sense. He is one of the best players in this class, straight up, with his crazy athleticism and pass rushing ability already, just as a 1-year edge rusher. Jalon Walker! Oh my goodness, I didn't expect this one. I'm just scrolling down, nonchalant. Jalon Walker at number 3 is crazy to me. That's definitely the first little shaker. I did not expect that one at all. I like Jalon Walker. I still have some questions with him. I'm going to have to revisit the tape some more on Walker. I haven't watched him in like a month and a half at this point, going back to late December, January was the last time I really watched film on Jalon Walker. I know he's a stud, and this guy certainly has the crazy athleticism. I just worry a little bit about his rawness as a pass rusher. And if you're gonna draft Jalon Walker, I just feel like you're gonna need a strong plan in place to understand that this guy, to me, is more of a year 2 guy, not maybe a year 1 guy in terms of a every down player. He very much reminds me of a Nolan Smith type of player, a very good athlete, very tough-nosed guy. He definitely can hang there in the run game. But you talk about him as a pass rusher in the way he uses his hands, his power profile. Those things are very much lacking on the film at Georgia. At least that's from what I saw. I did not see a whole ton of power going one-on-one against tackles. Very, very interesting. At number 3, that is wild. Oh, my goodness. Mason Graham at 4. This is a great, I agree with this. He's a top 5 guy in the class. You're not going to get a whole ton here that we need to talk about Mason Graham. You know that this dude is a beast. Ashton Jeanty at 5. Straight up, obviously, another top-tier player. Just comes down to the positional value. Where do you take your running back in the draft? So that's what teams are going to have to discuss. But even if you're a team like the Raiders, I have no problem if you want to pass up on one of the quarterbacks and go Ashton Jeanty and build your ground game from there. I think that's a really good process. And then wait on the quarterback until day 2. And I don't think that'd be a shocker for Pete Carroll to do that. Will Campbell at 6. I think Will Campbell is the highest floor tackle in this draft class. He doesn't have the upside that some of the other guys have, but I think he's just going to come in, be a really good starter for whoever drafts him. If you're New England and you're picking number 4, I have no issues drafting Will Campbell there. They need a tackle, clearly. If you can't get a Ronnie Stanley in free agency, I really believe Will Campbell would do excellent wonders. He is one of the best balanced pass protectors in this draft. His technique is already pretty far along, and he's just going to get better and better in that regard. I've heard nothing but great things, too, about him on and off the field and what he brings to the table with his leadership, understanding, and blitz pickups. Like, he was calling blitz pickups at times for them at LSU. Like, he was telling the center what to do, which is unbelievable. He knew what was going on. He is a very, very smart guy to be your left tackle. And I think he plays tackle in the NFL. I really do. Aaron McMillan, as I like to call him, Tetero McMillan here at number 7. I'm good with this ranking. I think it's very fair. And number 7, we're like a Drake London range. This is very much where he is. I don't think he's going to be like this top tier, top 5 wide receiver, but I think he's going to be very productive. I think he's going to be a top 20, top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. I love how Dane calls him this Gumpy-like body adjustment. I don't know, the Gumpy. Unbelievable. I'm gonna have to go back and revisit my history on that. But I love cartoons, so I gotta go check it out. But anyway, yeah, he certainly has those stretched out arms and big body build, and he moves way better than you would expect him to do that. Really good playmaker, whoever gets him. Armin Embu at number 8. Woo! That's high for me. It really is. I like Embu. Really good talent and somebody that brings the pop in the run game. I love the way he plays. I mean, you go to that South Carolina film, and he is just destroying Dylan Stewart. And consistently, too. He was just opening up lanes. Now, Dylan Stewart is as a freshman, so you got to give him a little bit of a break. He was more of a pass rusher anyway. But even throughout the film that I watched, you go and watch him versus the top-tier SEC competition, he shows off extreme power, and he's got definitely good athleticism. My one knock on him and why I wouldn't put him at number 8 personally is just because of his hand technique at the moment. Very raw. I also thought he was a bit lunge happy too at times and was helped out by some chip help, which lowered the stack numbers. And maybe you look at the PFF grades and say, oh, wow, really good PFF grades. I do think that there was some help there from tackles and the way the offensive structure worked. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I think it's a little high. And maybe he will be best at guard, as Dane mentions here. Some teams like him as guard. On to Shedeur Sanders. This is not surprising. This is one where I've seen so many evaluators, NFL scouts. They put Shedeur Sanders inside the top 10, top 15. You're going to see it across the board. And I don't disagree that the guy has rare athletic traits. You just look on the film, though, and I get it that he was super productive in a sense that he was getting pressure on the quarterback consistently. At the same time, though, there are many times where he's just like pushing the defender back, but he has no idea what's going on around him. So that was a little concerning for me. And then the lack of nuance with his hands. Those things, coaching wise, you see this Jalon Walker, you see these guys where they get better and better. He, to me, is more of a year 2, year 3 guy. So those are things. Do you value that? How much do you want to be patient? Where are you at as an organization? If you're a team that's looking to win right now, then I'd probably go elsewhere. So ultimately, it will be the whole traits over production, as Dane says here, and how teams are going to value some of these guys is interesting. Then you got Tyler Warren at number 10. No shocker here. Warren. Oh, I think he's got Colston Loveland at 11. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but Warren is that true. If you looked him up in the dictionary, it's going to say Tyler Warren does everything. I mean, he is everything, it seems like. And he can, throw the ball, catch the ball, run with the ball, block with the ball, everything. I don't know. Block with the ball, is that a thing? I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, Tyler Warren, really good player. Colston Loveland, also a very good talent. He's more your receiving option. Maybe he doesn't have the inline upside that a Tyler Warren has, but he certainly has the receiving movements. You talk from most recent drafts, someone like a Dalton Kincaid, I think Loveland's going to give you that. And he's boosted, I feel like, in this draft class too, especially after coming off Brock Bowers and the talent of him and some of these more recent tight ends and what they've had impacts in the game. Loveland and Tyler Warren are going to really benefit that. But in their own credit, they're very, very good players. Mike Green at number 12 here. Mike Green is, he's got that size. Better size than what I thought at 251. And he plays with an edge to his game, pun intended there. Obviously, the speed, the athleticism, we saw it on full display. And you go and he's got enough power to be able to pop back Josh Connolly Jr. and bring on the lights, camera action out there. I know it was wild, but Mike Green, really like him. Whoever gets up with him is going to be get a fun player. Then you got Will Johnson, number 3. That's right, Will Johnson. We kind of forgot about him. After an All-American sophomore season, which included defense MVP honors in the national championship, he had a bit of an up and down tape. And it was injuries, obviously a big question for him. But he's going to have to get... What really took a step back for me was his run defense this season. I thought his tackling really was a bit of a knock. Now, the coverage thing, I do think that he'll take too many chances. He got beat by double moves, especially go back to the Washington film versus Rome Odunze, and he had some noticeable flaws in his coverage. So, and that's why I was a little lower on Will Johnson even going into this season. I'm higher on Benjamin Morrison. But I also understand that Will Johnson's got all the traits to succeed. 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a really good athlete, very smooth athlete. That's the big thing. And as a corner, you got to be so fluid. I mean, that's such a key driver to be able to stick with wide receivers. Whoever gets him, though, you're getting a phenomenal prospect and a good player. I don't see where Will Johnson ends up being a bust in the NFL. Like, that's just the thing. I would take him top 10 still. Malachi Starks at number 14. He's another one that had a bit of a down year, in my opinion. And his tape, to me, this year, I think he's more of that back end of the first round guy. At 14, though, I'm okay with this ranking. I think it's fine for Dane. I mean, he's a really good player, and the athletic traits are fully on display as a true freshman, getting that opportunity to start and play. Just like we were talking about earlier with Ashton Genty, where will the safety go? Malachi Starks, where will that positioning go? Oh, here's the first quarterback. It's Cam Ward. And no surprise, I think Cam Ward not unanimously, there's always discussion. I kind of like Shedeur Sanders still more, but apples, oranges, all those sort of things. Or strawberry ice cream versus vanilla or chocolate, or maybe even talk about Apple versus Samsung. It's a whole discussion to bring on. Do you take the quarterback in the number 1 overall pick? Who knows? That's a whole different conversation to have. But Ward, really talented player. I would love to be able to get him in this range. Like, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cam Ward falls to you at that point, you do that, no problem. And I like the value of that. It just is a little bit early to draft him top 3, in my opinion, or if you're picking him number 1 overall, especially over one of those top guys. And then we go on here to Mikael Williams at 16. Another one of those guys where it's traits over production. I still like Mikael Williams, though. I think he's going to be somebody that is a high floor prospect. Yeah, you have to look into some of the injury with the ankle injury here after this season, but certainly you're not going to find guys with the traits, his arm length, his size, and athleticism, like the blend. He's not the most explosive or athletic guy that I've ever seen, but he, for his size, is incredible. For a dude that is 6'5", 265, you just don't see guys move like that very often. Jalon Walker-esque, where do you take him? Hopefully he goes more in that 10 to 15 range. Like, that's really where Jalon Walker should have gone. If the Jags would have gotten him in 10 to 15, nobody would be arguing with that. Josh Simmons at 17. I like this one. If it weren't for that season-ending injury versus Oregon, then he could be OT1. I think that's very plausible with his season. Body control, nimble feet, 2 great traits to have as a starting left tackle in the NFL. Booker at 18. All right, I was curious to see which guard he would have first. Tyler Booker. Oh, sorry, my scrolling skills. I'm getting a little jittery out here, but anyway. Tyler Booker, really good offensive lineman. He showed improvements this season for me because I was a little lower on Booker going into the season. He outweighed that for me. He really proved to be a first-round prospect with the way he played. Just looked a lot more balanced as a pass protector this year, which I was concerned about. He looked off balance a lot going into the season. And as a run blocker, I never denied the talent there. Derek Harmon at 19, a little high for me at Derek Harmon. I like him. I really do. I'm a Ducks fan, and I know that this guy makes plays. Jamari Caldwell, also a guy that's underrated, I think makes some plays. You got some studs out there on that defensive line in general. For whatever team is drafting him, you're going to get, ideally, I would like for him to be like a 3-4-3 tech. Like, that's really what I see, who gives you versatility that can play in a multitude of roles because he's really strong at the point of attack. Like, he can hold his own in the run game. So if you value that, I think Derek Harmon, and that's why he probably has him so high at 19, because he can hold the point of attack. He's strong in the run game. Not to mention, he brings a lot of pass rushing pressure. He's not the most twitched up guy. If you're looking for a Omar Norman Lott, or you go down the board, some of those type of guys and cats, like they're more agile than Derek Harmon is as a fluid pass rusher. But Harmon brings more size to the table and better run defense. And then there's Luther Burden here at number 20. Burden, down year, but Missouri's offense, such a difficult evaluation with Burden. I still think he is a top talent. The way he moves, it's unique, and the yak ability is always nice. When you can have somebody catch the ball, 5 yards on a slant or a drag and take that thing 15 plus yards, it's always nice for whoever your quarterback is. I just think Burden is so talented and kind of maybe even be a little underrated. I have him a little bit higher than that. James Pierce Jr., I also have him a little higher than this. We're going to get this comp a lot. Will McDonald. And it's a lot for good reason. He's going to be a guy that's probably going to be more of a year 2 guy as well. But I think he'll make his impact known early on the field as a pass rusher. And that's why I still like him to be top 15 pick. If you're the Atlanta Falcons, you need a pass rusher. I think Pierce will help you out so much in that department. Pick up a free agent to go along with Pierce and Arnold Ebiketie. Like, that would be a fantastic scenario for them. Or Arizona Cardinals, you name it, right? There's a lot of teams in that mid-tier range. Top 10 is a little rich if you're Carolina, but you need an edge rusher. There's a lot of things to talk about. Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle from Texas at 22. This is a fair range for me. I really do like Banks, but there are some things to be concerned about with him. I think he gets way over his toes too often. And that to me can be more concerning. Like, he is a guy that I think is not a perfect, like, can't miss type of player that you're seeing him, early on draft top 10, even top 5 to the New England Patriots. He to me is in more of that boomer bust here. And I would be very curious to see where he ends up going. I think he's going to need a really good offensive line coach to help him develop some of the mechanics and stuff like that. And then we go on, Jahad Campbell. I love Jahad Campbell. Huge fan of him. At 23, that makes a lot of sense. I think he should be the first linebacker off the board. Now, depending if you call Jalon Walker a linebacker. Another interesting fit, where does Jahad Campbell go? Because Campbell could be a guy that utilized off the edge as well as a true linebacker because of his zone ability and his ability to cover. I think that's something where teams using those hybrid linebackers more and more nowadays, they're going to value someone like Campbell, but it's going to take a defensive mind because he can play Sam linebacker. He can play middle linebacker. I think he can play a multitude of roles for you on your defense. And that's why I'm a huge fan of him and play an edge rusher, especially on pass rushing downs. Emeka Egbuka. Yeah, I love Emeka Egbuka. If you want a flashy jump to another receiver, but if you want a solid wide receiver that's going to come in day one, be a reliable target, Emeka Egbuka is that guy. And then, Shedeur Sanders, next quarterback off here. And Shedeur Sanders, smart, tough, accurate, which makes a great foundation for an NFL quarterback. Obviously, does he have the traits? Does he have the ceiling? That's everything that people are going to talk about. Oh, the prime time. We got the whole shake and bake out here. Oh, no, not shake and bake. We're not Talladega Nights yet, even though Daytona's coming up now this week. I'm excited for that too. But Shedeur Sanders, I like him. I like him off the field too. I'm not worried about any of that stuff and whatnot. Like, let's keep that to what it is. He seems like a great dude and family. I like the prime Sanders family. Nothing against them, and I wish him all the best. We'll see how he develops. You're going to have to get him with the right coaching staff, get him the talent, all those things. I think he can be a really good quarterback in the NFL. Let's go on here to Kenneth Grant, number 26, the big fella, the monster trench player. And with the emergence of some of these guys, and we talk about the defensive linemen, having that stout front like a Jordan Davis, having a Jalon Carter on your interior makes such a different presence. And I think Kenneth Grant is going to be a Jordan Davis-esque type of player and impact for whoever drafts him. I would love to have this guy on certain teams. Like, there are certain situations that teams like the Green Bay Packers, if you could get Kenneth Grant on that front, man, there's a couple of teams out there that could really use a big guy like Kenneth Grant. You talk about the Arizona Cardinals being another one of those teams. Really, I've grown fond of Kenneth Grant as the process has gone along. Now, I don't know if I would take him top 15 in the draft. However, I've really come along at the end of the first round. If you can get him out there, man, I think he's just going to be such a big impact. You got Marcus Golden at 27. He's another big-time riser. He's come from that air raid scheme from Houston over to the Texas Hook'em Horns. And yeah, that fluidity in and out of his release, his breaks and stuff like that, the route running nuance that he already has. He's a little bit on the smaller side, and you worry about the press going against stronger corners at the next level. I think he's going to be a really, really good playmaker in a Stephon Diggs type of role. Houston Texans, watch out. I think that'd be a really prime scenario for Matthew Golden. Nick Emmanwori, I see this with the Emmanwori, which is really interesting. He models his game after Derwin James, and it shows. I can see some of those traits to him. He is going to be a versatile guy. He's going to be somebody that can play inside the box, can line up in the slot, play big nickel, which in the NFL nowadays, you really need a guy like this. Maybe you go back 10 years and Nick Emmanwori would go at the end of the draft. Now it's like, we want a guy like Nick Emmanwori. I'm okay with this. It's still a little high. I feel more comfortable with Nick Emmanwori more as a second-round guy, but I totally understand that. There are still some limitations with him. Don't expect him to be the super rangy, fluid type of corner in the back end to be able to make sideline-to-sideline type crazy plays. But that length, that explosiveness, it's going to play. You put him up on tight ends, you put him up in the box, he's going to make plays. He has if you're talking about cover 2, he's going to be dangerous because he's got that speed, that burst, and that length profile where he's going to be able to break up passes in a hurry. So certain teams that value the cover 2, cover 3 schemes, draft Nick Emmanwori. And that's where I could understand drafting him in the first round if you're one of those teams. And then you got Walter Nolan, a big-time riser lately. Now, he's at 29. I've seen Walter Nolan even in top 10s of big boards recently. I do think this is more of a fair ranking. This might be a little low. Walter Nolan, there are some interesting things with him. The consistency issues obviously are going to be big and talked about with him. And, it's like some of that is he is a young player, right? He's not an old prospect by any means. I think he's 21 years old right now. Some of it's just like stuff he needs to work with, his hand technique, his balance issues. Those are things he can all work out and get a little bit better at. He does remind me a little bit of like an Ed Oliver type of prospect. I like Walter Nolan still. And I do think at 29, that's a really good value. And similar, I mean, it'd be even cheaper than where you can get, a lot of your impact 3 techs in free agency, right? If you can get him in the back end of the first round, I mean, I'd sign me up for that rather than pay a Milton Williams, $16, $18 million. It would make a lot of sense. Donovan Ezeraku, huge fan of Ezeraku. He's one of those guys I've fallen in love with going back into, I think I first really caught attention to Donovan Ezeraku in December. I was a little late watching Donovan Ezeraku, I felt like. But then when I watched him, it was like, falling in love with you. I mean, it was serious. Like, I couldn't stop like watching this guy, just watching tape over tape over tape. I first fell in love with the Florida State tape, and then I just like got rolling, and it's like, oh my gosh, the dude is a monster. His athleticism is oozing. It really is. He's got that fluidity to his game where the hop step, you talk about the spin move, you talk about the inside counters. Huge fan of Ezeraku. Understand the limitations with him, but I do think that he's got the length, and he's not, by any means he's not gonna back down to a challenge in the run game. Other dude I'm a huge fan of, Josh Connolly Jr., 31. I just think Connolly Jr., the way he moves, man, is so dangerous. I almost feel like he's a little bit disrespected in regards to his strength. Of course, you're gonna all shout at the Mike Green scenario, the one-on-one, but I really do think he has gotten stronger. And you look at the Ohio State tape, yeah, he lost some reps. J2 Amolau did pull him back with some power. And I'm not saying he's going to like stalwart guys or anything like that. He's not Ariante Ursary and that type of power. He's not J.C. Latham forklift style. But just his movement skills, you see that in space on the run. Oh, he's so dangerous in that regard. And he is more powerful than people think. He can put an anchor down. And I've seen it so many times on film, in game. That, to me, is where he shines. And in the improvements he's already made from his sophomore to junior tape. Shawn Revel at 32. I'm fine with this one. I think Revel's a really good, fantastic prospect. Really good, fantastic price. That's an interesting escalation there. But I'm still higher on Benjamin Morrison. But I do like Siobhan Revel a lot. Morrison, Revel, I think they're in that same bucket tier list. They could both be top 10 picks if it weren't for injury lists. Tyleik Williams at 33, high floor. And it just kind of value, what do you look at that? But Tyleik Williams, super strong, holds the point of attack, great hands, knows how to get off blockers, and he can bull rush you. He's got good first step as well. So he can be a great one tech in a 4-3. That's really where I like him. Donovan Jackson, yeah, I mean, he has him listed as a tackle. I personally still think he's a guard at the next level. I did watch some of the film at left tackle. Obviously, the Penn State game, you kind of have to throw it out at the tape, but overall, I still view him as a guard. That's where I would put him at the next level. Some teams will give him a shot at tackle, and I understand that. He does have decent enough length probably to do that. I just personally like him more on the inside. And then we go on to Caleb Johnson here at 35, and you get into the running backs, and I've seen Dane go back and forth with this between Caleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton. We can talk about both of these guys here. It really just depends what you want. I think if you're looking for more of a vision type of runner between the tackles guy, Caleb Johnson's your dude. I mean, look, I think they're both similar in a way that they're both good in between the tackles runner. I think Hampton's a little bit better of a receiving back than Johnson is, at least at this moment. Maybe Johnson works into a better receiving back. Hey, you just compared him to Le'Veon Bell. So, I mean, yeah. But I think that I'd give Johnson the vision check mark. I would give Hampton the receiving check mark if I had to pick the two there. But both are really good in that department. Yes, he's more of the bruiser. He's got that balance and patience and stuff like that. Mason Taylor at 37. This is a little high for me, but I really do like Mason Taylor. Really good player. He just doesn't have a whole ton of knocks to his game. I don't think he's an elite athlete by any standpoint, but he's a loose athlete and definitely going to be somebody that comes in right away and fills into your tight end room. I think he'll be a quality starter for whoever drafts him. Gray Zabel, after the Senior Bowl, this might be a little too low. Zabel, woo, man, I draft him in the first round, no problem about it. He dominated in the Senior Bowl. So this to me does seem like a little bit too low at this point and whatnot. And then we go on to Elijah Arroyo from Miami, the tight end, who had another guy who had a dominant Senior Bowl. showing off that athleticism and the movement skills at 39 here. It's still interesting, right? You have to determine the medicals. Where do if it weren't for the medicals, he might go in the first round. He still might go in the first round. But I do think this is a fine ranking for Elijah Arroyo. With the Sam Laporta's getting so much, with what that means to a certain type of NFL teams. Like if you can get yourself a Sam Laporta in your offense, which I think Elijah Arroyo can be something like that, then yeah, I mean, it's totally worth that pick. Jahdae Barron just comes down to the athleticism. Does he have elite athletic traits? No. But is he a master's degree in coverage schemes? Yeah, I love it. I love it, man. Master's degree right there. He certainly has it over there at Hookem. I think this is a very fair ranking. Whoever drafts him is going to get a stud slot corner that can play on the outside too. Pittsburgh is the ideal, I think, scheme-wise in terms of what they look for in corners to pair along with Joey Porter Jr. He can play inside out. He seems like a Pittsburgh Steeler type of corner. JT Tuimoloau. I love Tuimoloau. I love his name too. There's just something about a Tuimoloau. It sounds like an action hero type of name. And he's kind of like a Emeka Egbuka of the edge rushers. So I think this is a very fair ranking. Somewhere on day 2, he's going to be a guy that comes in right away into your locker room. He's going to fit the bill, size, length, and overall like run defense. He's going to be a guy that can see the field on all 3 downs. He may not be a dominant pass rusher, but I do think he's going to be effective in that regard with his pocket pushing ability. Azaria Thomas from Florida State at 42. Yeah, I'm okay with this. Thomas is not a perfect prospect. His tackling, if you really believe in tackling, if you're one of those corners, if you're like an Aaron Glenn type of philosophy, you may be a little lower on Azaria Thomas. Now, granted, he may be able to develop a guy with that to get better in the run defense because there's still plenty of talent to be had with him. He can bulk up, get us stronger. His man coverage skills are what you're drafting him for because he can stay hip to hip with those receivers on the outside. And that's really what you're drafting him for in the first place, in my opinion. But yeah, he's got to get stronger. He has the length, though, for sure. Carson Swessinger at 43. Wow, this is like the highest I think I've seen Swessinger. Swessinger, really good player. I like him. I've only watched a little bit of him. I'll be honest. I still need to watch more of Swessinger and get into the tape because UCLA, sometimes it's hard to find West Coast tape out there. But the tape that I have watched of him, I've been super impressed. His athleticism just screams right off the charts. And he could be a really, really nice will linebacker for whoever drafts him. Yeah, lightning quick, key and react processing. And that's really huge. Now, yeah, I think he needs to work on some of the stuff, in terms of like his stack and shed ability. That's not going to be a strength. But if you paired him up next to a guy like Jack Campbell, I think that'd be a really a dangerous 1-2 punch. Let's go on to Jack. Oh, another Jack. Captain Jack. We got all the captains out here. Jack Sawyer, he screams Detroit Lions to me and what he would bring to the table, especially with what they value at like opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. They really like a guy that can stop the run opposite of Aiden Hutchinson and somebody that can just be, that dude there, be a leader. So that to me is an ideal fit. There's a couple other teams that I think would make a lot of sense too for Jack Sawyer. Anybody that wants a guy that's going to be, a no-nonsense dude, a hard worker. He is going to be a dominant bull rusher. And yes, he may not be the most athletic, twitchy guy. He's going to be probably more of just a one-track bull rusher. I don't think he's going to be, your finesse guy, your spin move or anything like that. But anyway, I think he's going to be a really, really good player for whoever gets him. Just like JT Tuimoloau, he's going to be a very good quality football player. Landon Jackson, yeah, this is a little high still for me for Landon Jackson. I will say I came away more impressed with the Senior Bowl with the improvements that he made because when you walk at day 1, you're talking, this guy's a day 3 guy. Day 2 comes around, okay, we're moving up top of day 3. Day 3 comes around, okay, I'm cool with day 2. The improvements even into the Senior Bowl game too. Now I feel like, okay, this guy is a day 2 lock at this point. He was excellent on day 3 and into the Senior Bowl. Like he was literally destroying Carson Vinson, the tackle from Alabama State. He beat him like twice out there. And on day 3, he was winning reps consistently with inside counter moves. So yeah, I really do like Landon Jackson and his over improvements, but there are some limitations with his lower body stiffness. Xavier Watts at 46. I love this one. Xavier Watts, another one of those guys that has a master's degree in coverage assignments and instincts. So if you want somebody who has great instincts and has great coverage ability and makes plays, Xavier Watts. Alfred Collins. Okay, Alfred Collins, to me, teams that I would love for him to go to, someone like Denver, maybe that needs a one tech to replace DJ Jones. That, to me, he screams a 1-tech or a 0. He can even hold up there. He's just so strong at the point of attack. He doesn't really have much pass rush at the moment. He can get better in there. I do think he'll eventually be like a 30, 40 pressure type of guy. Ultimately, though, I really like him as a run defending player. Then you go on to Jaden Higgins here. I'm still kind of figuring out my grade on Jaden Higgins. It is a tough one with Higgins because I love what he brings to the table with his release package, with his strength profile, with his size profile. He is a smooth mover, too, for a guy his size. And while I see some similarities to Nico Collins, I don't think he's that level of an athlete as Nico Collins. I just felt like Nico was a better mover coming out of Michigan. But Higgins definitely has some of those traits. And certainly, there are a lot of things to like with him. Just wonder, is there going to be consistent separation with him? You're going to have to understand some limitations overall with him, but definitely a really good prospect. It's going to be able to hang with that strength profile. TreVeyon Henderson. I am a huge fan of Henderson. I actually have him over Hampton and over Caleb Johnson. Now, it's close. I'll be real. It's very close. But I love Henderson's speed. I love Henderson's receiving ability. And man, do I love his blocking ability too. He's just an all-down three-down workhorse. Whoever drafts him, you're getting a stud. I think he's going to play way better in the NFL than he did in college even. I mean, he played well in college, but I think he's going to get more opportunities in the NFL and just be a really high-floor running back. Maybe Johnson ends up being a little bit better. I think Johnson has a lot of upside, and so does Hampton. Like, both of those guys are really good players. I just imagine that the reason that Dane has him a little bit lower than those guys is because of his vision, which he says, although his inside vision can be a little messy, Henderson's ability to bounce laterally and smash the accelerator. You know, shot out of a cannon, Pat McAfee would say. I don't know. I love Henderson. Ursery, okay, this is a fair ranking in my opinion. Ursery, got to know some limitations when you're drafting Ursery. And he's going to be only certain type of scheme fits as well. If you value those big monster tackles or offensive linemen, then he's going to be a fit for you. But understand that in those 7-step drop offensive systems, that he may not be your best fit there. Okay, if you have to make him do these big kick slides and stuff like that, there's going to be a little more issues with Ursery. If you're a play action heavy offense that can run some zone, like he can do zone, like he's got first step quickness to be able to reach, and his hand strength is super impressive. So certain offenses are going to really value a guy like Ursery. And I even think the Cleveland Browns could get by with this guy in the second round as a potential offensive guard or tackle replacement, depending on how they feel about with DeJuan Jones and obviously Joel Bitonio being a possible retirement candidate this offseason as well. But there's a couple of fits with Ursery that I think would make a lot of sense. And then we go on to Jordan Burch. Oh, Jordan Burch, an Oregon Duck. I always love to see a Duck out here. And Burch is underrated. I think he is. He's a 285-pound guy that does move a lot better than that. Now, he's not the most laterally twitched up guy, but he moves really, really well. He's got an explosive burst, first step off the line, and he creates pocket push consistently. That defensive line, they do a pretty good job of creating some push, and we'll see Mateo Uyunglele next season. I think he could be a first-round prospect. But Burch, his versatility, who's going to be coveted at the NFL level, I really do like what he brings. And then we go on to Jonas Salvanaia, who dropped a little bit from me after the Senior Bowl. I think back into the second round, early third round, that's more of the value on Salvanaia. So this might still be a little high. I still like him, though. I think his tape is better than what his Senior Bowl showed up on. So I don't want to get too low on that. Really still like him and what he brings to the table as that power, grit, run blocker, and powerful hands. Just needs to move inside. Nick Scorton, this is another ranking that I feel better about with Scorton. Scorton, though, I do like him, and I'm saying that kind of funny, Scorton. I feel like I'm pronouncing that a little bit. But Nick Scorton, the edge rusher from Texas A&M, he's another definition of a Mike Dana type of profile. So Kansas City Chiefs, maybe, if they're looking for another type of Mike Dana, or just anybody who's looking for a high motor guy. Maybe the Detroit Lions as well could be, if they wanted to trade down possibly and draft Nick Scorton, that could be a really good option for them. Really high motor dude that can stop the run, can also affect the passer, but he's just going to be limited a little bit athletically, in my opinion. Just not overly dynamic and super bursty. And then going on here to number 54, Maxwell Harrison, the corner from Kentucky. Yeah, I like Harrison. I will give credit. Dane Brugler has been spot on Harrison. I was a little lower on him in coming into the season, just mainly because some of the physicality I worried about, especially press coverage. He showed a lot more at the Senior Bowl of physicality. I still like him in more of either a cover 3, I'm cool with that, or a cover 4 quarters match sort of scenario that turns into man coverage. Like those match principles, I think he'll be really good with that with his fluidity in space. Overall, though, interesting player, and certain teams are going to really value that hip fluidity that he brings to the table in man-to-man coverage. Just wonder still about the press coverage. And here's Ben Morrison. I am a huge fan of Benjamin Morrison. I am. Yes, the hip surgery, the second hip surgery, and then also he had a shoulder surgery too. So that's a big question mark. And I totally get that vibe. But at the same time, I can't pass up on a guy that has the talent of Ben Morrison that I could see being a true number one lockdown corner. To me, if nothing else, he's going to be a guy that comes into your team and as a high-level wider cornerback number 2, in my opinion. He just has too much fluidity, size, and breakup ability at the catch point. His instincts at the ball, at the break are phenomenal. I can't pass up on that. He would be a top 10 player in this class if it weren't for the injuries. It sucks, man. It really sucks. Shamar Turner's an interesting one here. Not seeing a whole ton lately about Shamar Turner. Turner's over-aggressive tendencies that draw attention from officials. He is the type of player you want on your side. Oh, interesting. Okay, so he's got that demeanor. I like to hear that. I don't, some of this stuff, the off-the-field stuff, I don't always pay attention to. So good to get a little insight there from Dane Brugler. Needs to introduce more discipline in his play style. Also, just think he needs to get better with his hands. And in the pass rush game, didn't show enough for me. But he definitely has the athletic traits. Jackson Dart, third quarterback here. So the whole who's the number 3 quarterback? Dane Brugler has Jackson Dart here. Still a lot to be known. So interesting. Dart is a guy that is going to need to go to like an Andy Reid type of system, but he'll understand how to use this guy. He really does, because what he's come from in his offense is from a wing tee to a air raid to more like Lane Kiffin, RPO centric. I know they were a little bit more pro style this season, but all those things is going to need time with his progression and reads and anticipation. Those are things, especially under pressure. Ultimately, though, I might still like taking Dart in the second round over taking Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders top 5. Like, I think the value of that is just better. He might get reached for in the first round, too. Who knows? Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers could go after him if they don't get a quarterback in free agency they like. And then Jalen Royals. I like this one. I'm a big fan of Royals. I thought he looked very, very controlled, steal Dane's word here, at the Senior Bowl. His footwork looked good. And this is what I was concerned about. This is the only reason I have a third-round grade on him, is because at Utah State, they literally just deployed him on screens, hitches, and go routes. Like, that is legit it. So I want to see him more in terms of the route running nuance, because that is a question mark for him. But with the way he moved at the Senior Bowl, I really came away encouraged. Still some things to work out there. He's not a perfect prospect. Tyler Shough over Milroe. Oh my goodness. Interesting. But I just got to watch more of Tyler Shough. This is one of these prospects that I'm going to have to get into the film room and really do a deep dive on him, because, yeah, I don't know. From what I just watched from Louisville games, I don't know if I'd put him here at number 59. Seems a little early. Okay, TJ Sanders at 60. I did lower him a little bit after the Senior Bowl. I thought he could be a guy that could compete for a first-round selection after the Senior Bowl very easily, even was in that department already. I think he's going to fit right into a team, a 3-4 defensive end type of role. Especially an ideal fit, especially at 60, would be the Baltimore Ravens in the second round to get another pass rusher on that defensive front. Since Matabuki being double-teamed all the time, they need somebody else besides Broderick Washington that can get after the quarterback. I mean, you got Jones as your one nose tech, but yeah, they could really use another guy like a Sanders on that interior. I think that'd be a great fit for them. Jalen Milroe here at 61. So Milroe's finally done off as a 5th quarterback for Dane Brugler at this standpoint. Yeah, there's just so many tools. There may not be a prospect whose ranking will fluctuate more than Milroe. Where to begin? He's an athlete and a great person, but can he pass the football? Can he be the conductor for your football team? That's the big question. Jordan James? This is the high. Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw Jordan James out here, but going back to Milroe, very interesting. We'll see what happens with Milroe. But Jordan James, I love Jordan James, and I do think he is underrated. There's still some things to look at with him. Is he an elite speed guy? No. But yes, is he a all gas, no brakes type of running back? Absolutely. He's one of those guys that I'm just rooting for on Saturdays, as a Ducks fan, of course, as I was mentioning. But he really brings that oomph, despite being maybe a smaller guy. Like, he has a really low center of gravity, as he mentions. I think his vision's really good as well. Receiving wise, definitely has receiving ability, and certainly can be a great running back in your rotation as a David Montgomery type of running back, maybe for somebody who drafts him. Cameron Williams here at 63. Oh, he's another very fascinating prospect. What does this say? Williams has the ability to overwhelm defenders in the run game and force rushers to take a $20 Uber ride to get around and pass. I mean, it's kind of what he does. And I'll be paying, don't be paying $20 for your Uber ride. That is expensive. But anyway, Uber is expensive. I didn't realize, I don't really do Uber or anything like that. I'm lucky. I do have a car. But for all the people that have to take Uber, I know how expensive that is, man. It's unbelievable. But having to take a $20 Uber ride to get around Cameron Williams definitely doesn't seem very functional. He's got long arms. He's got insane functional strength to his table. I don't think it's as good as J.C. Latham, but certainly has those traits. And I think he's going to be a guy that we'll see the medicals influence his final draft ranking. Okay, I didn't know there were some medical issues too with Cameron Williams. So maybe injury concerns going back and this being his first full year as a starter. Those are going to be questions with him. Gunnar Helm at 64, another Hook'em Horns player. After seeing just 22 targets in the first 3 seasons, he became the guy after Jatavian Sanders went to the Carolina Panthers, of course, and he did a great job. He's very fluid. He's another one of those guys that is in the same bucket for me with Mason Taylor. Really solid player. I think he's going to be a good tight end for whoever drafts him. May not be a true number 1 tight end, but I think he's going to be a very good one. Josiah Stewart, another one of these guys that very, very solid talent, and he is going to be a great designated pass rusher early on. He just brings the pop. You know, he's one of the toughest nose guys. You're going to hear this through and through, but the speed of power with him, he wants to run through you. He wants to annihilate guys, and that's what I love about offense. You know, when you talk about edge rushers, you got to be, you got to want to go at it. And they got Marcus Bowe from Purdue. Boiler up. Okay, that's what I'm talking about here at 66. A lot of things to work with Marcus Bowe, and he has them listed as a guard, which I could see. You know, another one of these guys will he play center? Will he play guard? Will he play tackle? Who knows, right? He's going to have to get stronger if he wants to play on the inside, and his hands are going to have to get worked on. You know what I mean? His hand placement's a little bit, or jerky, a little wonky donkey, but get a little Wonka package and get your chocolate bars going there. It's going to be an exciting time. I think he's going to be a really good offensive lineman. Oh, speaking of their little, little excitement here, a little burst of energy, Darius Alexander. Man, he had a great Senior Bowl, and he is so athletic. He's another one of those cats that has legit potential, I think, in a 3-4 setting, because he is a guy that legit can play like a 5-tech role. And you talk about it, we were just talking about Matty Buki. Here's another guy that can do stuff like that. That you talk about the stunts, getting him on those packages to just, eat and go crazy with shooting gaps. I think Alexander is going to rise up boards even more as we go into this process. Depending on the combine, that's going to be a big question, certainly, but I think he's going to press big time. Trey Harris here at 63, 6'3", 210, definitely has that size profile. Be a productive Robin for the NFL offense and a go-to target. Oh, I like the Robin there. I like that. I didn't even know that was a term. I'm going to have to look that one up, but I was thinking like Robin from Teen Titans, which is pretty crazy. Anyway, Robin, let's go. My favorite character from I always was a cyborg sucker. I got the Sonic, if you got the boom. But Robin was pretty cool, too. One of my favorite episodes actually was early in the season with her. Anyway, Harris, going back to football, we're talking cartoons again. But yeah, he is going to be a little limited with his clean transitions. Is he a dominant, route runner, create tons of separation guy? Probably not. He's going to be more of a number 2 bigger body receiver. Think of like a Tim Patrick. Maybe if the Detroit Lions pick him in the second round, I think that'd be a good scenario, too. Tate Radlich at 69. He's another. Yes, he's self-described as a dirtbag. What? Unbelievable. That's kind of crazy. Oh, hey, I'm a dirtbag, but I don't know. But either which way, it's an interesting way to put yourself. Hey, he plays with it though. He plays with his head on fire. He is just so strong at the point of attack. He moves to guys in the run game. So if you're looking for a guy that can move guys, I think Radlich is going to be your dude. We got a Quishon Judkins here at number 70. Dirtbag. I still can't get over it. He calls himself a dirtbag? Yo, that dude be fooling around, but I love it, man. I love Tate Radlich. He's a dude. Quishon Judkins, Ohio State University, the Ohio State University. Here, he is going to be your contact balance king, right? I think his athleticism, he's going to be a guy we need to see at the combine. He could rise up if he shoots in like a 4.49, which I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that. But yeah, I'm actually more curious about the 10-yard split with Judkins. Ashton Gelati, really like him a lot. He's just been a football player. You know what I mean? He doesn't have like oozing traits, but he certainly has like all the things to make as a 3-4 defensive end. I think he's going to be great in that department, or even a base 4-3 end. And actually might be a better role for him, a 4-3 end that can play a little inside on pass rushing downs. We got Jalen Noel at 72. He had a great Senior Bowl. Looked very good. He was like Jalen Royals. Just looked uber smooth throughout the entirety of the process. And he's got some speed, too, to cook. And then go on to Jordan Phillips here at 73. He was a big East-West Shrine Bowl guy that looked great in the one-on-ones. He is so rocked up, man. Oh my gosh. He looks like the Incredible Hulk out there. At least you compare him to some of those guys. He was just incredible. He's chiseled. Oh yeah, it's the Senior Bowl MVP, Jack Bech. I'm actually a little higher on Jack Bech, 74. I understand, like, he's not the most physically dominant athlete or anything like that, but he is so smooth. He is a good athlete. Like, he's a smooth athlete. He's not going to blow by you or anything like that, but you bring out the Puka Nakuas. He certainly has some similarities in that regard, and he catches everything, it seems like. He's got really good hands. He's another guy like Detroit Lions. Watch out. He could be a great scheme fit, and he blocks his butt off. So if you're looking for a Tim Patrick replacement, oh, he blocks. He blocks hard. Princey Umami-Ellen, 75. Okay, I'm okay with this one. Umami-Ellen actually looked better at the Senior Bowl in terms of rushing at 5-tech role, 4-eye position. He's gotten bigger and stronger. He's equipped to hold up against the run. That's still a bit of a question mark with him. I think he needs to play with more violence and refinement. Yeah, stack and shed. That's definitely because he's more of a guy that tries to win by speed. He's a guy that's like looking to get to the edge, and that can be more of a problem at the next level. You got to be able to stack and shed, and I think that does show up a little bit more. So I can understand that he's going to be more of a rotational player early on in his career. Jalon Walker, another guy that I think is a rotational player early in his career that could develop into a rock star. He has so much boom or bust potential. And I've a lot of people have asked me about Jalon Walker, and I totally understand that. Like, I probably need to do a film breakdown on him. He is just such a mystery. Like, you talk about murder mystery or any type of those type of shows, I don't know what to think with Jalon Walker because he's all over the place. Walker certainly benefits from the planet theory. There are only so many 340-pound humans walking the earth that have that combination. So I guess if we had to do a whole, save the day situation, get somebody off the planet, Jalon Walker would be on that ship just because, hey, you got to have somebody like that with his size. But yeah, he is an interesting prospect that needs time to develop with his leverage, with his technique, but he wins. If you just say, hey, play maybe, a couple of downs here and there, and as a rotational guy early on, he could dominate in those reps. Quincy Riley, I'm glad he's got him here. I think he's a great third-round selection, whoever gets him. Could be this year's Mikey Sanders still even. He can play on the outside, just like Sanders still can. Really good in man-to-man coverage. And for teams that don't mind smaller corners, even though he's good for his size, 5'10", 195, like he's well built throughout his frame. He just has some size limitations overall, but he is so feisty, so smooth. And you saw him going against physical guys in one-on-ones, playing it, hanging well. Omar Norman-Ladd, as I mentioned earlier, he's more your twitchy guy, whereas Derek Harmon is more of a well-rounded, built-up guy that can stop the run. Lott's going to have struggle with their hanging in double teams and things like that. How many snaps can he handle early on in his career? But in terms of what he could develop into, I think he could eventually be into like a Javon Hargrave type of player. I think that's his upside and what he could be as a pass rusher. Kevin Winston Jr., just the medicals. That's the big thing. He could have been a first-round selection, but the ACL tear in week 2 certainly is going to be a big thing that we have to talk about. Dylan Sampson, speed. If you're a team like the Indianapolis Colts in the 3rd round and you want to pair along the little lightning to JT's thunder, I think Dylan Sampson would be an excellent pick. Ozzie Tripolio, I still need to watch more on. He's going to be actually a guy I think I'm going to do a breakdown on very, very soon. From what I saw at the Senior Bowl, still a little high with the pads. His butt, I want to see him sink a little bit better, and that can get him pushed back at times. But he is a refined guy. He's very technically savvy and somebody that could probably start early on if he needed to. Then we go on to a Harold Fanning, and he could be like a Blake Fisher type of guy, somebody that gets drafted on day 2 and maybe gets a chance to start as the season progresses. Harold Fanning Jr., Bowling Green tight end. He is a scheme fit. He's going to be very much where does he end up? That's the big question with Harold Fanning Jr. But you can't deny the traits with him as a catcher. He is one of the best, receiving threats in this entire draft. That's just what he brings to the table. It's just going to be a unique player. He is a unique player. Jared Wilson. Here's another guy that has a lot of potential. He needs to clean up some technical refinements with his hand technique, in my opinion, but the athleticism is there. I also think he's strong enough to handle the point of attack. Like, he's very scheme versatile. I think he can play in a gap or a zone team. He's a balanced type of player and has a lot of upside there for whoever drafts him. He was the top center, I guess. It depends on, where you have guys like of course, Gray Zabel and, Marcus Bowe, things like that, dudes who can move inside. Will Howard, here's the 6th quarterback now. Howard entered the season as a mid-round prospect after a run that resulted in Ohio State national champion. Now, getting into day 2, probably won't get out of day 2, according to Dane Brugler. The functional mobility, arm talent, and decision-making skills. NFLs will also appreciate his competitive toughness. And being able to win the championship, of course, is going to get you up a little bit risen up, just like Stenson Benson did winning the championship. It's gonna get the attention of NFL scouts. In his own right, I think he's a good prospect. 6'4", 235 pounds. He's got the size profile. And I really do think that he could be a guy you could draft on round 3 and could end up being better than the first round quarterback selected. He still has some areas he needs to improve upon, but he looked better as the season went along. Like, he looked so much better with his processing and feeling confident, reading and progressing and going like that. They asked him to go through progressions, especially as the season went along. It was more like, okay, it was your offense. Danny Stutzman, 85. He's a really good run defender. Think of like a Jack Campbell type of player, but maybe not. I don't think he's as good of a prospect as Jack Campbell, but I do think he's going to come into the locker room and be a really, really stout run defender, or maybe even like an Alex Singleton type of player. I think that'd be a better comp, something like that. Really gap sound run defender that needs to get better in pass or coverage. Jacob Parrish, feisty small cornerback. I didn't realize he was 197 though, so that was a big plus for him, and he looked good in the Senior Bowl. Looked really smooth. And his competitive toughness, I've never doubted that with him. It just comes down to he's going to be probably more of a nickel only, and that's why he probably is a 3rd round or a 4th round type of guy. Kyle Kennard, love his explosiveness and his overall athleticism. For a guy 6'4", 248 pounds, he is a little thin, I guess, for that frame and whatnot, but he's got long arms, and he was certainly a guy that made his presence at South Carolina known. Now, there were some things with him, and I do want to see him get better with his hands and more consistency getting off blocks. However, Kennard, I do like him, and I think he's going to be, whoever gets him is going to at least get a good rotational pass rusher. Joshua Farmer, here's another guy that just needs to learn how to get off blocks more consistently. He's more of just a run down the chest type of guy. Anyway, I like him. I think he's going to be a great one tech for whoever drafts him, and a team captain for Florida State as well. That's always good to note. A team that could go after him, Detroit Lions in the 3rd round. If you talk about trying to find a heir apparent for TJ Reader going into last year of his contract, I think Joshua Farmer could be a really good heir there. Tez Johnson, size. That's just the big question. He moves so incredibly well. We all know that, and he catches the football pretty at a high level. He had a couple of drops here and there. Overall, this season was pretty dang good with drops. 10 pounds lighter than Tank Dell, so he's a complete outlier. Can he be Tank Dell 2.0? That's a good question. Elegant Manor, much lower on his board comparative to the last big board that he had. I believe he had him like in the top 30. This time he has him at 90. It just comes down to, is he a guy that you feel can create separation at a consistent level? That's going to be the big thing here. He lacks the natural refinement, but can be a matchup weapon because he's large, he's physical, and he's got good size. He's got that catch radius. And you saw what he did with Travis Hunter. Noah Williams, here's a guy I need to watch more of. Him and there's a safety there. Craig Woodson, I need to watch him as well. I've heard some good things about him. But Noah Williams, the cornerback, he looked great at the East-West Shrine Bowl. So here's another guy that definitely could rise up a lot more with a good combine and 40-yard dash time. On to number 92, Olafemi Oladejo from UCLA. Here's another guy that's Senior Bowl cat that came onto the scene, including me and everybody. It seemed like it's like dude came from nowhere. He looks like an edge rusher. He plays like an edge rusher. Former Mike linebacker. So he's a guy that the stock's ticking up here, and certainly could be a steal, whoever gets him, just because of the limited sample size with him, and certainly has all the tools to be a really good pass rusher for whoever drafts him. Can't wait to see where he ends up, too. He's a very interesting player. Amos, I forgot about Trey Amos. 93 at 6 feet tall, 32-inch arms. Amos can match up well against NFL size. He is very scheme-specific, though, which will eliminate him for several teams, but his consistency and coverage improved each season. Okay, so I get that. He's probably more of a cover 1, cover 3 schemed corner, okay? And he's not going to be for everybody. I thought his tackling was pretty good, though, in general. Like, he is a solid tackler. He's not an uber speed guy, so that's going to be a thing where Combine is going to be so critical for Trey Amos. How well does he test? That's going to check a big box for him. Interesting that he has him that low, though. Isaiah Bond at 93. I really wanted to like Bond more because he is a tremendous athlete and will show at the Combine, but given the lack of reliability and physicality, to me, is the big question with Isaiah Bond. I really liked Bond going into the season. I thought he showed the physicality, but this season was just a major step back. You just didn't see him out there a whole ton making plays. So how much of it was on the offense? How much of it was on Isaiah Bond just not getting open quick enough and struggling out there? All questions, but I would still take him in the 3rd round, no problem, because of the upside. RJ Harvey, I love Harvey a lot. If you talk about Harvey as a Bucky Irving type of prospect, I think Harvey could be that guy in this draft. He just drives. His leg churn for his size is so incredible, like Bucky Irving, and he doesn't have the power to drive through the first level. Sure, he's not the biggest guy, but I just think he has that first step explosiveness and also that the shake that Bucky Irving has. He may not be as contact balanced as Bucky was coming out or is in the NFL, but I still feel like he is able to drive through contact better than for a guy that you would expect it, his size would be able to do. Then you got Kobe Bryant. He had a great East-West Shrine Bowl, another big-time riser. Just he is an outlier at 170, 175 pounds. I mean, he needs a good meal. Give him the steak, give him the eggs, give him the, the mashed potatoes, get him worked up there. But he certainly has the read and react athleticism. Cover 4 schemes, I think, are going to really like that guy. They can play match principles. Andrew Makuba from Texas. Here's another guy, just size. You worry about him as a sub 200-pound safety. Not going to be for every single team, but the tape is so good. He flies. He does fly around the football. He just understands the game. He's another guy there like Jahdae Barron, understands coverage schemes. I thought he was best at playing in more of a true safety role. Then we go on to Terrence Ferguson at 98. I'm glad he made the list. I think Ferguson's a really good athlete, and he showed that at the Senior Bowl. His one-on-one ability to create separation was fully on display. With improved technique as a blocker, I think he'll be able to stay on the field. And I think he's a year 2 guy ultimately, but from what I saw at the Ducks, he was a consistent presence for them. Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State, very interesting. He's a traits prospect. I still am lower on Darian Porter, especially coming after the Senior Bowl. He's not there with his technique. His footwork is not there, and he's going to be a guy that you're going to need some time. Maybe the Chiefs can draft him at the end of the 3rd round, get him to develop behind Jalen Watson for a season, Joshua Williams. That's kind of an ideal scheme fit for Spags, maybe, with those 33 and a half 1/4 inch arms. Absolutely. Okay, Chris Paul. I'm glad he made the list as well here. He's a really, really good prospect. He is not like your overwhelming size guy, but he certainly plays with intensity. In the pass game, too, he's super smooth in coverage, and I think he's going to be a really, really good will linebacker. He played the Mike linebacker role, but I think at the next level, he's going to be more of a will backer that can drop back into coverage, keep him clean, because he is such a hunter. You know what I mean? He really hunts for the football consistently. So if you just let him say, hey, look, Chris, we got a Jack Campbell next to you. You just go out and you chase. We're going to keep you clean. Campbell's going to keep you there. And then you go make those plays sideline to sideline. Do what you do best. I think that's really where he's going to be at his best. Oh, that's Dane Brugler'S top 100 big board updated. Curious to see what he'll do when he comes out with the beast. So I'll have to keep you updated when that comes out. That comes out probably in April. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Sorry, I was probably talking way too much on these. Hope you guys have a really cool day. My name's C-Sling. I'm doing my thing. I'll talk to you here later.